Hi, everybody. It's Mike Macniak again. Here I am in the fifth installment of the paper that I'm about to publish based upon last week's post. I am here to talk to you about the fifth and final misconception that a lot of people make with regard to caring for a person or being put in a position of acting as guardian, care manager, fiduciary of any kind for another person. So imagine that you are working as a guardian or any kind of fiduciary for your loved one, your grandmother in this case, and your grandmother is appointed an attorney to handle matters that are involve her and perhaps an estate or whatever the case may be. It's very, very commonplace for laypersons to sit back and say, well, that lawyer is a scumbag, or that lawyer is a jerk, or this lawyer is not doing his job because he's not looking out what's best for my mother. He's not looking out for what's best for my sister, my grandmother, whatever the case may be. And the fact of the matter is that, you know, lawyers, for probably good reason, have a bad rap. And a lot of people get very angry with them because they are doing things that we may not necessarily agree with. The best example of this, of course, is when you have, hey, Karen, how are you? Is when you have, basically you might have criminal cases, right? So if you have a criminal case where you have a lawyer who's set to defend a murderer, a rapist, a child kidnapper, or whatever, a lot of us sit back and say, hey, Dino, how you doing? Nice to see you. A lot of us sit back and say, man, that guy is so slimy, so scummy. How can anybody deal with that? How can anybody represent this scumbag criminal? And the thing that you have to remember is that lawyers are ethically bound to do a job, and that job is to advocate that which their client wants. So getting back to my example, where we may be caring for an elderly parent or a grandparent or whatever, and there's a lawyer involved, the lawyer is not able to do the things that you think they should do because it's the best for your grandmother or your loved one. What the lawyer has to do is go to his client, who in this case is your grandmother or your loved one, and say to them, what is it that you want me to do? And assuming that grandmother says, I want you to do X, the lawyer's job is to advocate vehemently on behalf of their client that we should do X. Where we all may be sitting back and saying, oh my God, no, that's the worst thing that could possibly happen. Why would anybody do that? Why would he be advocating for X when everybody knows that Y is the way we need to go? Y is the best sample. X is going to result in tragedy. That very well may be the case, but the lawyer has an obligation to follow the wishes and demands of his client. So he has to ethically follow what the client, in this case your grandmother, sets X. There's a whole separate set of rules that are established, obviously for people who are acting as guardians or care managers or fiduciaries, where we have a best interest standard that we want to adhere to. And the two get very much confused and they get very much overlapped in common society these days. And it just cannot be in the case of trying to separate a lawyer's job from a guardian or fiduciary's job. So one of the misconceptions that we make, as I've written here, is that, you know, an attorney has to act in my parents' or my loved one's best interest. That's simply not the case. An attorney has to act in accordance with the wishes of his client. And they very well can come in conflict with what you perceive as being best interest. And frankly, that's okay from the lawyer's perspective. That's what they have to do. So you, as a guardian, caregiver, fiduciary, have an obligation, on the other hand, to say, hey, this is what I think is in my client or my loved one's best interest. So, hi, Kelly, how are you? Nice to see you. So as you think about how to best care for your loved one or your client, you're thinking best interest, least restrictive standards, all the things that I've talked to you about in the past. And what you really have to understand is that's not what the lawyer's doing. So separate this. We need to separate the two roles from lawyer to fiduciary, best interest standard to basically ethical obligation to follow a client's wishes or demands. And that becomes very tough for us. It becomes very tough for us as a society to sit back and say, wow, I don't understand how this guy could be doing this when he knows that this is only going to be harmful to my loved one or my client. But the lawyer has an obligation. The best thing that you could do as a fiduciary or as a guardian is to strongly advocate best interest and make a case to say, hey, my loved one is not capable of making an informed or rational decision to advise her attorney to go with X. As the fiduciary, as the guardian, I'm coming in here to you, to the court, and saying we need to follow a best interest standard here because that's my role. My role is to try to come in and protect my loved one from themselves, and where they're unable to make informed decisions, they're telling their attorney to do one thing. The attorney's listening to them because they're obligated to, but I'm here to say this is wrong. We need to go in another direction. So the fifth misconception, as I said earlier, is that people believe that a lawyer should always be acting in the best interest of his client. And as I said at the outset, that is unethical. That is absolutely flies in the face of the standard of what a lawyer is supposed to do. You, as a guardian and fiduciary, need to step up, take over that role, and say, hey, I know what the lawyer's job here is, but me as the fiduciary, I have an obligation to protect this person, and I'm going to do that in any way I possibly can, and this is the best interest standard that I'm following. So I hope that helps. I hope that doesn't get things more confused. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. You all know you can go to michaelmachniak.com. You could message me here on Facebook or any number of other places that you can get me. I thank you all for joining me here briefly today. This is the fifth synopsis of the article that I'm about to publish, and this will be the final one until now. I'm going to start writing and talking about a different topic, and so I hope you look out for that, and just follow me here on Facebook and join our professional guardian and fiduciary forum. Until I catch you next time, be proactive, be proficient, and change lives. Thanks, everybody.